Today we will be talking about the applications of artificial intelligence in the area of drug discovery and development. So first we will start with a summary of the steps involved in the drug design process, and then we will look at some of the shortcomings of conventional methods and how data-driven methods can be used to improve this process. And then finally, we will discuss some examples from existing companies that have an integrated approach, as well as newer biotech companies. So the drug discovery process involves the four major steps shown here. The approximate lengths are given based on the traditional methods of drug design. So the first stage is research and development. Researchers identify a target, which can be a protein or a pathway in the body affected by a disease or condition. Once the target has been identified and validated, compound screening takes place, where tens of thousands of potential compounds undergo testing to determine which ones affect the specified target. From these tests, lead compounds are identified, and their structure can sometimes be modified through a process called lead optimization. The next stage in the drug discovery process is preclinical trials. In vitro experiments involve testing the potential drugs on cells or molecules outside of their usual biological surroundings. And these tests help to determine the toxicity of the drug. In vivo experiments involve testing the drugs on animals to determine how it would behave in the body. Drugs are required to be tested in 2 mammals, at least 1 non-rodent species, before it can proceed to the next stage, which is clinical trials. Clinical trials involve human participants and take place in 3 phases typically. So each phase can be repeated multiple times, and the entire process can take many years. Phase 1 involves small groups of volunteers, typically 20 to 80 people. And the main aim of phase 1 trials is to determine the side effects of the drug in humans. Researchers use very small doses that are increased gradually to minimize the chances of very serious side effects. Phase 1 trials also give an idea of how the drug is metabolized by the body. Phase 2 trials are larger, involving a few hundred people. And in this phase, researchers are investigating the effectiveness of the drug by comparing control trials to a placebo. If the drug is successful, then it would move on to phase 3, which can involve thousands of people. And the goal of this phase is to examine the dosage and effectiveness of the drug, both in general and compared to existing drugs for the same condition. After the clinical trials, we have the review and approval stage. So when researchers have enough evidence that their drug is effective and relatively safe, they will apply to the relevant regulatory body for approval, which can take 1 to 2 years. And this regulatory body would specify an acceptable level of risk based on what the drug is designed to treat. So drugs that provide treatment that did not previously exist would be given priority over drugs which are similar to those that already exist. After the drug is approved, there is continuous monitoring of its use in the general population, just in case there are rare side effects not observed in the trials. So that's a really lengthy process, and it would take quite a long time for an approved drug to reach to the market, typically 10 years or more. It is also very costly, and the success rate is still low. Approximately 250 of the initially identified compounds are considered for preclinical trials, and only about 12% of drugs make it through phase 3 of clinical trials. It's estimated that only around 1 in 5,000 identified drug candidates eventually reaches approval and widespread use. The average cost of getting a drug to the market in 2019 was $2.6 billion US, and the global pharmaceutical industry spent a collective $186 billion in research and development for that same year. Now that's quite a bit of money, but global market research analysts claim that artificial intelligence could significantly reduce these costs by about 70 billion by the year 2028. So the area of the drug discovery process that could benefit most from the use of artificial intelligence or machine learning is the research and development stage. So during this stage, researchers screen large libraries of molecules to identify those with the potential to become a drug to treat a specified disease or condition. They also conduct numerous rounds of tests to develop them into promising compounds. AI and machine learning can help researchers analyze these libraries more quickly and thoroughly. So there's a biotech company called Atomwise, and they developed a deep convolutional neural network called AtomNet, which is currently screening millions of virtual compounds against targets to identify potential candidates that will be tested by researchers in vitro preclinical trials. There's also a journal article titled Interpretable Deep Learning in Drug Discovery, and in it, the authors discuss the use of neural networks to predict molecular properties and bioactivities. So for drug development, it's not enough to just classify molecules as toxic or non-toxic. And so the authors use graph convolutional neural networks and the TOX21 dataset to actually pinpoint the structural elements of a molecule that would be responsible for toxic effects. And this allows for these substructures to be modified by researchers. Transformers are also being used to predict drug-target interactions. So here are some intelligence-based biotech companies and some of their recent research. So Cyclica is a Canada-based company, and they use their deep learning platform called Matchmaker to identify FDA-approved drugs and experimental medicines that have a potential to treat COVID-19. They weren't able to test their findings like in clinical trials. And then Atomwise was mentioned in the previous slide, but they are also working on drug discovery projects that focus on treating multiple sclerosis, leukemia, and Parkinson's. They were actually able to discover a new molecule that targets MS through their patented AI screening AtomNet. The potential drug was found to be active in mice at low doses and has been licensed to an undisclosed pharmaceutical company. Insilico was originally established in the United States, but they moved to Hong Kong in 2019. Using GANs, they developed platforms that they believe would save millions in R&D costs. So here's their software suite. The use of artificial intelligence in pharmacology is a collaborative effort. I wasn't able to find any approved drugs that were developed with AI, but here are some well-known pharmaceutical companies that have started to integrate data-driven methods. Pfizer have been utilizing machine learning methods since 2016 through a partnership with IBM Watson to accelerate drug discovery in immuno-oncology. In 2018, they partnered with Atomwise to identify potential drug candidates for 3 undisclosed targets. Novartis have also partnered with IBM Watson for breast cancer clinical trials in 2017. In 2018, they collaborated with Intel to use deep neural networks to accelerate high content screening as part of their research and development stage. And then the last one is GlaxoSmithKline, and they have been very active when it comes to utilizing artificial intelligence for drug discovery, and they even have their own Insilico drug discovery unit. In 2017, they partnered with a UK biotech startup to discover novel and selective small molecules for up to 10 undisclosed targets. Their research has led to the development of a highly potent in vivo lead molecule that treats chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. And that's it. Any questions?
So, Karesia, you said you couldn't, you weren't able to find examples of drugs that were created using AI. Is that
Yeah, I think because a lot of them they still like in the clinical trial phase. I know they started trials, this Japanese company started trials for this drug that they developed that supposedly treats OCD, but I haven't heard anything like an official name for a drug that's out and used by the general public.
and you know how it was used because you know people keep saying that AI was one of the reasons they were able to develop the vaccine so fast for COVID. Do you know what in particular it was used for?
No, so I haven't found the one. Well, I didn't look into the one for the COVID vaccine. I was more looking into the ones for like drugs instead of vaccines because it would kind of be a different like it's a similar process, but it would be different a different approach. So
Right.
I wasn't able to find. Well, I didn't look into those. I just looked into like tablets.
Okay, and one last thing. This is just a personal beef. So a lot of money is spent on these drugs, right? How much do you know how much is spent on preventative measures that could potentially avoid having to use these drugs?
I don't know, but I think at this point, if they were looking into spending money into preventative measures, it might be probably the same amount that they would spend into developing drugs. But it's also like I don't want to say it's a conspiracy, but they say that they just keep they just keep making more money if they develop the drugs versus preventing the diseases, right? That's a slightly controversial topic. So,
Yeah, well, yeah, no, I'm definitely on that
but I mean,
anti-drug.
it's probably true. Like they make money off of people being sick, so why would they want to stop the people being sick? But they don't want to say that, so
You mean
Yeah.
planned obsolescence for humans?
Keep us sick as much as possible so they could make the money.
Yeah,
Okay,
but not too sick so that they can't save you.
yeah.
I just had one question, Karesia. I don't know if I missed it early on, but was the objective of utilizing ML here for protein folding, or just like obtaining different success rates for models?
Yeah, it was mostly to minimize the amount of time that they spent in R&D. So
Okay.
when they were looking at the timeline, like there are a few applications to the clinical trial process, but it's more like to increase the efficiency of it, and some of them predicted like success rates of the clinical trials. But I think the bulk of the time and effort actually goes into the research and development phase, and they also have to pay a lot of people to do that too, right? And uh, the earliest part of the research and development phase would be to screen the molecules, and that is something that they were able to make more efficient with ML and AI.
Okay,
So that
cool.
was my focus.
Yeah, I vaguely remember hearing something like that on a recent podcast, and that like billions and billions of permutations of molecules are now it's doable in less than the age of the universe with various new techniques.
Yeah, well, computational chemistry is a thing that's been around for a long time, and they actually have a lot of data for it. So I guess it was only fitting that it would eventually progress to this.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
I have a paper you. Oh, sorry, Chris.
Oh, yeah, hi. Kind of relate. Interesting topic. Just quick question: is it like black box techniques you guys using, or is the result you think generates interpretable as to why the drug would work?
So there was the paper that I mentioned, the one that used the graph convolutional neural network. They
Right.
actually looked into it as being interpretable, so as not being a black box. And they by looking at like the individual layers of the network, they were able to pinpoint exactly what it is that makes their molecules toxic when they would interact with a target. So some of it is black box, but one of the ones I looked at actually went through the process to see.
Huh, that's interesting. Oh, okay, cool.
Hi, Carissa. Really nice presentation.
Thank you.
I just have actually not so much a question, but there's a paper I think you might find some interest in. It's a paper that was well, I think it's I should say a preprint that has been produced by some Google scientists on using GNNs for olfactory property prediction. So I think there's some parts of it that you might find rather interesting. Just send me an email and just remind me, and I can probably get it to you.
Okay,
If you
thank you.
if you've never seen that paper before.
No, I haven't seen it.
Okay, just shoot me a reminder. I can send it to you. It's a really interesting paper along the similar line of computational chemistry using GNNs.
Okay, thanks.